So my name's John Carey. I'm a physiotherapist by background. I'm from Ireland originally, and I've been living over in Melbourne for the last 5 years and primarily been working clinically as a physio, so mainly in disability. And then I've done some rotations through the years as well in different places. But my main focus and my main passion is working with children and young people with disability and all sorts of disability and kind of different roles as well. So things like prescribing assistive equipment, being out in the community, doing home visits or visiting schools and providing exercise programs and physical activity interventions and all sorts of things in the places that are most meaningful for kids and families. I took the dive into doing the PhD 2 years ago at this point, just before COVID. So now technically in my second year. And yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind, but been mainly an area of growth, I would say, like a time of growth. The PhD itself is, I suppose, in a nutshell, it's all about supporting children and young people to participate in cycling in the community. And we're aiming to do that through partnerships. So by working together with cycling organisations, disability organisations, through a cycling alliance that we've kind of set up, but also through learning more from lived experience. So we've got people with disability and some parents involved in some of the projects as co-investigators. So they're really kind of helping to support the projects to make sure that they're really manageable and implementable into the real world and meaningful and worthwhile for people with disability on the ground. So yeah, and I guess my passion piece as well is really about trying to ensure that kind of bridging the gap from that rehabilitation side of things, whereby the intervention might be like a cycle skills program or an intensive or provision of some equipment, just making sure that those interventions get translated into actual participation at home and in school and in family life. So trying to bridge that gap from rehab to recreation, as it were. A typical week looks pretty different each week, I would say. I guess I'm doing the PhD full time, so 4 days a week are dedicated to my research, and then I'm still working clinically 1 day a week in a specialist developmental school out in Waratah SDS. So during the 4 days of the study, like I said, it can vary from project to project. At the present, I'm working on an ethics submission for the final project as part of the PhD. So that's a really exciting project on using experience-based co-design and basically trying to gather people's experiences in cycling and then move that story or narrative into a design process. I'm currently working on that project at the minute, and I guess it's taking up a lot of my time and energy. But yeah, weeks can look very different from time to time. I was reflecting on kind of what I've enjoyed, and I think one of the big things is probably some of the impact that it's had both on myself personally and also kind of career-wise as well. Professionally, the impact has kind of been around chain being implemented and seeing the wide kind of range of practitioners that have been taking up chain and using it with their clients and feeding back. And I guess that impact of it having a far reach was something that I kind of didn't really realize that you could have as a physio. It was really kind of cool. It was cool to see that education really works and that like your impact can be kind of wider than just the clients and the parents and the families that you're working with directly. So that was quite nice impact wise. And I guess because a lot of my research methods are quite qualitative in nature, there's a lot of kind of self-reflection and kind of thinking about your own views on the world and how you approach things and your own kind of biases and paradigms. So I think that self-reflection has kind of taught me a bit as well of just like kind of really getting a grasp as what my why is and why I'm doing this PhD and what I kind of want to get from it. There's been a number of challenges. I guess like any good journey, I think coming from a role where you feel quite kind of confident and confident in what you're doing on your day-to-day, it's really been a bit of a challenge, I suppose, stepping back into the role of being an apprentice again. So you're an apprentice researcher learning all of the skills and the methods and the ways of going about things and trying to set up your mind that you're able to kind of critically appraise things. So that's definitely been a learning curve for sure. There's just so much learning and reading and all that kind of thing to do. So that is a challenge. And in COVID times, it's particularly, I suppose, a bit more difficult because you are kind of doing a lot of it alone and a lot of it's quite self-directed, and having the ability to bounce things off directly with people isn't there as much. But seeing the opportunities with virtual engagement has definitely been an eye-opener, and a lot of us within the CPG group are kind of connecting through Zoom and messaging and that kind of thing. So that connection's been really helpful to kind of overcome some of those challenges. My answer to this was on a beach in Hawaii, but I guess, yeah, I've thought about that as well. And some of my real passions are in the clinical role and that kind of thing. So I would love to try and see kind of marrying some of the research-based skills back into the clinical role. So potentially like a clinical researcher. And then I've seen a lot of transferable skills from the PhD in terms of things like leadership, decision-making, planning and managing a project. So I feel like they translate really well back into some of my practice-based kind of roles as well. I'm pretty open to seeing where the road leads me with it. Yeah, kind of excited to see what the next steps are. I think the focus at the present is just to get through the end of the PhD and then figure it out. So being a research associate to CPG has been really useful for a number of reasons. Firstly, I think being in contact with like leading experts in a number of different areas, things like participation, consumer engagement, which are all kind of passion pieces and parts of my PhD, it's been really useful to be able to get that knowledge and feedback. The group that we have, so we've got a PhD research group that's been really useful to connect with other people who are undertaking a PhD, and they're all at different stages of their journeys. And a lot of the research is everyone's taking different approaches and different ways of looking at things, but it's really nice to have that connection. And then the other area that I found useful is just the involvement as a mentor and part of that consumer engagement piece. I feel like we were able to kind of model a lot of the consumer engagement aspects of my project for the experience-based co-design from the consumer engagement that's been done in CPG. So things like setting up an expression of interest, creating a role description, creating kind of debriefing opportunities and mentorship within the project has been really useful to kind of get that scaffolding for the projects that we're implementing. So yeah, I'm very open to contact from anyone who's interested in the areas of cycling and disability. Probably the best means to contact me is through my student email. So it's jjcarey@student.unimel.edu.au, or you can give me a call on my work phone. It's 0492 802 824. So I'm happy to be contacted. That means email is probably best. I'm currently still keeping an expression of interest list for people who are interested in undertaking the online training program Chain. So it's currently dormant, but we'll be hopefully running it again. So yeah, happy for people to contact me on that. And then we'll be aiming to recruit for the last project, which is the experience-based co-design one. So we'll be hoping to recruit children, young people with disability, parents and family, and also people who support cycling. So teachers, therapists, coaches. So watch that space in the next while. We'll have some posters and advertisements up as well.